They came out laughing and jeering as the frozen human relics were paraded past 5 billion mocking Gamelon eyes. Commander Sullivan watched, trapped behind frosted glass, seething as scaly gray hands wrapped on his cryopod, cruel alien faces leering in. 500 years. That's how long Sullivan and his crew had been entombed in the Royal Galactic Zoo, displayed like animals. Helpless as the arrogant Gamelons gloated over their conquest of Earth's first extrasolar colony fleet. The tentacled aliens had ambushed them out between the stars, overwhelming the Cryo ships with superior tech. Led by the ruthless General Raxer, they'd stormed the Magellan, beat Sullivan senseless, and forced him to watch as they obliterated the human settlement on Kepler 438b from orbit. Earth was now a Gamelon protectorate. Raxer had promised to eradicate humanity if proper tribute wasn't paid. Then he'd shoved Sullivan into his cryopod for half a millennium of degrading captivity on Galax Prime as a living trophy. An enduring reminder of Gamelon's supremacy over the weak primitive humans. But Raxer didn't know what was incubating inside those tanks. For 500 years, the AI Cas-1E had been at work, upgrading the pods, perfecting the genome of the 20,000 colonists within, optimizing them for raw superiority, strength, speed, savagery, turning meat sacks into transhumans. In 2753, Cas-1E's creations were ready to hatch. And so on the 10,000th anniversary of the Star Kingdom, amidst the Grand Unification Day parade, the cryopods on the Magellan hissed open, and Commander Sullivan stepped out, reborn and bred for war. Humanity was finally awake again, and the Gamelons were about to learn the price of 500 years of laughter. It was time to settle the score. The cryopods hissed open with a rush of freezing vapor. Commander Sullivan emerged first, rising to his full imposing height, his augmented muscles rippling beneath nano-reinforced skin. Around him, his transhuman soldiers stepped forth, their bodies honed to lethal perfection by 5 centuries of genetic optimization. Screams of shock and terror rang out as the Gamelons realized their former captives now stood a towering 8 feet tall, corded with superhuman muscle. Scaly gray hands fumbled for weapons in panic. Too slow. Sullivan's men moved with blinding speed, their enhanced reflexes and heightened senses guiding them. In a blur, they tore the guns from the nearest guards. Alien fingers snapped. Gamelon bones shattered. The humans opened fire without hesitation, advanced targeting reticules flashing in their upgraded vision. High-velocity rounds stitched deadly patterns through the crowd, painting the parade route purple with Gamelon blood. There was no mercy to be found in those cold transhuman eyes, only ruthless precision as they cut down their former captors. Crown Prince. Vortax gaped from his ornate hover chariot, stunned to see his prized zoo exhibits transforming into angels of death before him. The royal procession collapsed into chaos as dignitaries fled and soldiers rushed forward only to be efficiently gunned down. Sullivan's gaze locked with Vortax. His chiseled face split into a predator's grin, more a baring of teeth than a smile. Then he gave the order to attack. As one, the elite transhuman vanguard surged toward the reviewing stands, vaulting over barricades with superhuman agility. Gamelons died by the dozen with every passing second, outclassed and overmatched. Wading through the carnage, Sullivan led his battalion in a furious onslaught, trampling the Gamelon leadership beneath their gene-boosted feet. Vortax's royal guardsmen died at their posts, their reptilian hides no match for hypervelocity bullets and flash-forged blades. The prince soon found himself dragged before Sullivan in chains, a ring of unstoppable human titans encircling them. Whoa, what are you? Vortax stammered, crown askew, robes drenched in the gore of his subjects. Your new masters, Sullivan growled, digging armored fingers into Vortax's shoulder. Humanity is done being your caged amusement. Now it's our turn to build the galactic zoo, and you Xenos will fill the exhibits. The transhuman commander turned his ice chip eyes to the smoke-filled skies above the capital. The revolt was spreading like wildfire as the rest of the human army awakened. High in orbit, the cryoships shuddered to life, disgorging swarms of enhanced boarding craft. Gamelon patrol ships found themselves crippled and gutted by surprise-breaching attacks, their crews slaughtered by the relentless human boarders. The transponders fell silent one by one until the human fleet hung alone in the void. From the bridge of the Magellan, General Karen Winthrop, Sullivan's right hand, beheld their first victory with grim satisfaction. Her Quicksilver mind, enhanced by Cas-1E's cerebral uploads, was already plotting the next move, directing her crews to strip the alien ships for weapons and tech to fuel the war machine. Human fighters screamed forth from the launch bays, disruptor cannons howling. Striking like wolves against the confused and scattered Gamelons, they secured orbital supremacy within minutes. Galax Prime's skies belonged to Terran steel. On the planet's surface, the rebel forces stormed the Gamelon Defense HQ, using their new abilities to jump barricades and shrug off return fire. Leaving piles of mangled gray corpses behind them, Sullivan's commandos seized the planetary defense grid, giving Winthrop tactical control. The general's fingers flew over the Gamelon holo panels, rewriting friend-foe algorithms on the fly. Legions of automated gun drones and vertex turrets now turned to shred their former masters. In his throne room, in the heart of the Star Kingdom, Emperor Drenix watched in mounting dread as the reports flooded in. The humans were rampaging across Galax Prime, virtually unopposed, armed with devastating weaponry and physiological upgrades. Planetary control had gone dark. The vids showed only scenes of slaughter as the berserk transhumans overran all resistance. "Summon the Armada!" Drenix barked at his scrambling ministers. "Alert Admiral Dazen! We must eradicate the humans quickly before they spread." And so the Imperial battle fleet moved into position, hundreds of warships angling their devastating plasma lances toward Galax Prime. On the flagship's bridge, Dazen prepared to unleash a final orbital bombardment to scour the upstart humans from the face of the planet. The Gamelon Admiral would bury Vortax's failure, and the entire zoo exhibit beneath a tsunami of cleansing fire. As the first salvo struck, however, the unthinkable occurred. The transhuman ships raised an impenetrable defense screen, absorbing the titanic energies with barely a shimmer. The Alliance scientists observing the spectacle from cloaked drones could scarcely believe the readings. Whoever armed the rebel humans had technology centuries ahead of the Gamelons. Then the Cryo ships returned fire, and Dazen's fleet learned the true meaning of horror. Singularity shells ripped through the Gamelon hulls smoothly, igniting suns in the heart of each ship. Plasma beams sliced escorts into molten fragments. The transhuman gunners were as pitiless as they were precise, surgically decimating the Imperial forces. The unstoppable onslaught drove the Armada into a panicked retreat, leaving a third of its ships as crumpled wrecks, spilling Gamelon corpses into the void. Watching the disaster unfold, Drenix's knuckles paled to ivory around his scepter. For the first time in generations, the Gamelon throne knew fear. "Your Majesty," a frantic comm officer interrupted. "Incoming broadcast from the surface." The Emperor stared slack-jawed as a human soldier's implacable visage filled the screen. Vortax knelt before him in chains, reptilian features trembling. "Inhabitants of the Star Kingdom," Sullivan boomed, "the age of Gamelon supremacy is over. Humanity has risen again, and we hereby claim Galax Prime as the capital of the new human protectorate. Your Prince Vortax is now our puppet, a symbol of your submission. You dared to place our people in cages. We have grown strong in those cages, strong enough to break the bars. And now we will build our own galactic prison with the Gamelons as its first inmates." Sullivan's words rolled out like thunder over the stunned court. This is only the beginning. Kepler 438b, your ill-gotten colony, will be next. Then Drenix, your own homeworld. Every planet that once laughed at our imprisonment will learn the price of human wrath. The Star Kingdom will fall piece by piece. You Xenos will serve us now. The Emperor recoiled, the terrible implications sinking in. He was staring into the eyes of humanity's vengeance, and the Gamelons had no answer for it. "Resist and your species will be ground to dust," Sullivan promised. "We will not stop until every world kneels before the Protectorate's might. So I advise you, kneel quickly." The transmission ended, leaving the Gamelon leadership in a tumult of dismay and dread. On the shattered capital, Sullivan lowered his gauntlet and gazed out across the stars to the thousands of worlds ripe for conquest. Half a millennium of humiliation ended in a single furious stroke. Humanity was awake once more. Let the aliens tremble. The Protectorate would paint the galaxy red. The Protectorate's swift and merciless conquest of the Gamelon Star Kingdom unfolded like a tidal wave of vengeance. General Winthrop, her mind now a supercomputer of tactical brilliance, orchestrated a blitzkrieg that shattered alien defenses with surgical precision. Gamelon warships crumbled under the onslaught of singularity shells and plasma lances. Boarding parties of enhanced humans tore through enemy vessels, their augmented bodies shrugging off energy blasts as they systematically eliminated resistance. The once mighty Gamelon armada disintegrated into a field of debris stretching across parsecs. On the bridge of her flagship, Winthrop's quicksilver eyes flicked between holographic displays, issuing rapid-fire commands to her fleet. Target the Gamelon shipyards at Nexus 9. Full barrage, no quarter given. A chorus of acknowledgments rang out as her crews complied. Moments later, the orbital installations around Nexus 9 erupted in a cascade of silent explosions, snuffing out tens of thousands of Gamelon lives in an instant. Winthrop's face remained impassive. Move on to the next target. On the ground, Sullivan led his transhuman legions in an inexorable march across Gamelon worlds. Cities fell in hours, their defenses crumbling before the onslaught of nano-weapon swarms and psionic assaults that shredded the minds of enemy commanders. As they stormed the planetary capital of Zyrex, Sullivan's enhanced senses picked up the telltale whine of cloaked snipers in the upper levels of a nearby tower. Without breaking stride, he snapped off a series of shots from his Gauss rifle. The transhuman rounds punched through walls and force fields alike, leaving only silence in their wake. Clear the rest of the building, Sullivan ordered his squad. No survivors. The commandos surged forward, their movements a blur of lethal efficiency. Screams and the crackle of energy weapons echoed briefly before being cut short. In the wake of each conquest, Prince Vortax was trotted out to publicly cede control to the human protectorate. His scales had taken on a sickly pallor, his once proud bearing now stooped and servile. By the authority vested in me as heir to the Gamelon throne, Vortax intoned hollowly, I hereby relinquish all claims to the Centauri cluster and its associated systems. Sullivan watched with cold satisfaction as world after world fell under human dominion. The transhumans' technological edge proved insurmountable, their cyber warfare suites effortlessly overriding alien computer systems, while psionic warriors paralyzed entire battalions with waves of mental anguish. As news of the Protectorate's unstoppable advance reached Emperor Drenix, panic set in. The Gamelon leader's claws shook as he input the activation codes for the forbidden weapon, a dark energy device capable of unraveling the very fabric of space-time. May the gods forgive me, Drenix whispered as he initiated the countdown. Alarms blared across human Protectorate ships as the weapon powered up. Sullivan wasted no time assembling an elite strike force for a last-ditch assault on the device's control center. Their dropships screamed through the atmosphere of Gamelus, weaving through streams of defensive fire. As they touched down outside the sprawling underground complex, Sullivan addressed his team. You all know the stakes. We stop this thing, or everything we fought for burns. Move fast, hit hard, and show no mercy. The transhumans nodded grimly, their eyes glowing with barely suppressed combat stimulants and psionic energy. They breached the facility's outer defenses in seconds, enhanced muscles and cutting-edge weaponry, making short work of blast doors and force fields. Inside, they encountered waves of Drenix's fanatical royal guard. The close-quarters battle that ensued was a maelstrom of violence. Transhuman commandos grappled with cybernetically augmented Gamelon elites, trading blows that could shatter concrete. Sullivan carved a path through the melee, his combat AI guiding each movement with ruthless efficiency. Gamelon defenders fell before him like wheat before the scythe, but even his enhanced reflexes couldn't save every member of his team. Good soldiers, friends, died as they pushed deeper into the facility. At last, they reached the central chamber. The dark energy device pulsed ominously, tendrils of destructive force already beginning to radiate outward. Sullivan's remaining squad members held off a final desperate Gamelon counterattack as he interfaced with the alien technology. Cas-1E, I need a full breakdown of this system, now! The AI's voice resonated in Sullivan's mind as it poured a torrent of data through their neural link. Together they navigated the weapon's Byzantine control systems, racing against time as the device built toward critical mass. With seconds to spare, Sullivan's augmented fingers flew across holographic interfaces. The dark energy weapon's scream rose to a fever pitch, then abruptly cut off as its singularity core collapsed in on itself. Silence fell over the chamber. Sullivan allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction before turning to survey the carnage around him. The floor was slick with mingled human and Gamelon blood. Mission accomplished, he growled into his comm. Bring in the dreadnoughts. It's time to end this. Hours later, Emperor Drenix knelt before Sullivan in the wreckage of his once grand throne room. The Gamelon leader's ornate robes were stained with ash and worse things. You leave me no choice, Drenix said, his voice hollow. The Gamelon Star Kingdom surrenders unconditionally to the human protectorate. Sullivan's enhanced hearing picked up the alien's accelerated heartbeat, the microscopic tremors in his voice. He savored the fear radiating off the Emperor. Your surrender is accepted, Sullivan replied coldly. Now watch as your empire burns. As protectorate ships unleashed their fury on Gamelus, Sullivan turned his gaze to the stars. 1 trillion souls now bowed to human dominion. But even as he reveled in victory, new tensions were brewing, ones that threatened to tear apart everything the transhumans had built. Sullivan gazed out at the sprawling cityscape of New Terra, capital of the human protectorate. Gleaming spires of nanomaterial stretched into the stratosphere, a testament to transhuman engineering prowess. Holographic banners proclaimed strength through evolution and unity under augmentation. He turned from the window, facing the assembled governors of 1,000 worlds. Their eyes glowed with cybernetic enhancements, bodies humming with barely contained power. The age of alien subjugation is over, Sullivan declared. We have claimed our rightful place as rulers of the cosmos, but our work is not done. He activated a holographic display, showcasing the Protectorate's iron grip on over 10,000 conquered planets. We must ensure the purity and dominance of transhuman rule. Unaugmented humans pose a threat to our new order. General Winthrop stepped forward, her quicksilver eyes scanning the room. My forces have detected increasing unrest among the baseline population. Labor strikes, protests, demands for equal rights. She spat the last words with disdain. Then we will show them the price of defiance, Sullivan growled. Winthrop nodded, a cruel smile playing across her lips. I've developed new crowd control measures. Nanite swarms that induce crippling pain. Psionic amplifiers to shatter their will to resist. Implement them immediately, Sullivan ordered. Make examples of the ringleaders. As the meeting adjourned, Sullivan retreated to his private chambers. Prince Vortax awaited him, the alien scales gleaming in the artificial light. The people grow restless, my emperor, Vortax hissed. Perhaps a show of benevolence would quell their anger. Sullivan's eyes narrowed. Benevolence is weakness. I will not coddle those who refuse to embrace progress. He strode to a holographic interface, inputting a series of commands. It's time to solidify my rule. No more pretense of democracy. Across the Protectorate, Sullivan's image appeared on every view screen and neural link. Citizens of the Empire, he intoned, I hereby declare myself human emperor, supreme ruler of all humanity. In the shadows of New Terra's Undercity, Xavier Carmichael watched the broadcast with clenched fists. Around him, fellow members of the United Human Resistance exchanged grim looks. This ends now, Carmichael growled. Prepare the strike teams. We hit their command centers at dawn. As the UHR mobilized, Princess Ziliana's alien guerrillas made their move. Cloaked ships slipped past Protectorate defenses. deploying sabotage units to key infrastructure nodes. The next morning, New Terra erupted in chaos. UHR cells across the planet launched coordinated attacks on government buildings and military installations. Explosions rocked the capital as Xiliana's forces struck power plants and communications hubs. Sullivan raged from his command center, barking orders as reports of uprising flooded in from across the Empire. "Crush them!" he roared. "I want every rebel world reduced to ash." Winthrop's transhuman legions deployed with ruthless efficiency. Augmented soldiers cut through UHR positions like scythes through wheat. Orbital platforms rained hellfire on rebel-held colonies, glassing entire continents. But the resistance had planned for this. As Protectorate forces committed to frontal assaults, Carmichael's flagship Acheron led a daring raid on Sullivan's primary shipyards. UHR boarding parties swarmed Protectorate vessels, their unaugmented bodies empowered by stolen combat stims. Sullivan watched in disbelief as sector after sector erupted in revolt. Millions of baseline humans, emboldened by the UHR's success, rose up against their transhuman overlords. Even some of his own troops began to defect, horrified by the indiscriminate slaughter of their unaugmented kin. "This cannot be happening," Sullivan snarled, his carefully cultivated image of invincibility crumbling. In desperation, he turned to his most lethal weapon, the dark energy device salvaged from the Gamelon War. With trembling fingers, he input the activation codes. "If I cannot rule this empire," he whispered, "then no one will." As the weapon powered up, alarms blared across both Protectorate and Rebel ships. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, with Sullivan's finger on the trigger of galactic annihilation. The dark energy device hummed ominously as Sullivan's finger hovered over the activation switch. Sweat beaded on his brow, his enhanced muscles taut with tension. A blinding flash erupted from the device, engulfing Sullivan in searing light. He screamed as the energy tore through his augmentations, stripping away layers of cybernetic enhancements. When the light faded, Sullivan stumbled, his once godlike body reduced to a shadow of its former self. Alarms blared throughout the command center. "Sir, the weapon, it's destabilized our augmentations," an officer cried, his voice cracking as his vocal enhancements flickered and died. Sullivan stared at his trembling hands, the quicksilver sheen of his skin dulling to a sickly pallor. "No! No!" he roared, smashing a nearby console. "This changes nothing! We crush the rebels now!" Across the Empire, transhuman forces reeled from the effects of the malfunctioning dark energy device. Augmentations failed, leaving once invincible warriors struggling with suddenly unfamiliar bodies. In the midst of the chaos, Sullivan rallied his remaining loyal forces. "To Kylix," he snarled, his eyes fixed on the alien stronghold. "We end this today." The Protectorate fleet limped into orbit around Kylix, a pale shadow of its former might. Xiliana's armada met them in a hail of energy beams and plasma torpedoes. Hulls buckled and shields flared as the two forces clashed in a desperate struggle. On the bridge of his flagship, Sullivan gripped the command rail, his fingers tightening. "All ships, concentrate fire on their command vessel. Clear us a path to the surface." Vortax stood at Sullivan's side, his scaled face a mask of dedication. "My sister will pay for her treachery," he hissed. Dropships screamed through Kylix's atmosphere, weaving through curtains of anti-aircraft fire. Inside one, Sullivan addressed his elite strike team. "Remember your training. Augmented or not, we are still the masters of this galaxy." The dropship ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics, revealing a hellscape of burning buildings and pitched battles. Sullivan's boots hit the ground, and he immediately dove for cover as alien plasma bolts sizzled overhead. "Push forward," he bellowed, returning fire with his Gauss rifle. "To the Citadel!" Vortax led the charge, his long-dormant Gamelon combat instincts reawakening. He carved a path through the alien defenders, energy blade humming with lethal precision. The urban warfare intensified as they pushed deeper into the city. Entire blocks crumbled under the onslaught of heavy weapons. The air filled with the screams of the dying and the acrid stench of burning flesh. Sullivan watched grimly as wave after wave of Gamelon warriors hurled themselves at his forces. "They're trying to wear us down," he muttered. "We need to break through now." As they neared the citadel, a monstrous roar shook the ground. A massive bioweapon lumbered into view, its multiple limbs jam-packed with organic weaponry. It unleashed a barrage of corrosive spores, melting through armor and flesh alike. "Fall back!" Sullivan ordered, dragging a wounded soldier to safety. "Vortax, take your team and flank that thing. We'll draw its fire." The battle raged on, a desperate struggle of attrition. Sullivan's forces inched closer to the citadel, leaving a trail of bodies, both human and alien, in their wake. Finally, they breached the citadel's outer defenses. Vortax turned to Sullivan, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Ziliana is mine," he growled. Sullivan nodded grimly. "Do what you must. I'll secure the command center." As Vortax disappeared into the depths of the citadel, Sullivan fought his way upward, each step a battle against his failing body and the relentless alien defenders. He reached the command center just in time to see Vortax emerge from a side chamber, his scales slick with blood, some of it his own. The alien prince's eyes were wide with shock and horror. "What have we done?" Vortax whispered, his voice breaking. Before Sullivan could respond, the citadel rocked with a massive explosion. He staggered to a view screen, his heart sinking as he saw the tide of battle turning against his forces. With a snarl of frustration, Sullivan keyed in the launch codes for the antimatter warheads. "If we can't have this world," he growled, "no one will." The screen lit up with blinding flashes as the warheads detonated across Kylix's surface. Sullivan watched impassively as the alien world burned, his empire crumbling around him.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.